President Buhari signs Petroleum Industry Act into law.
Very soon, you will not be able to travel the world unless you produce an evidence.
All Nigerians will have unfettered access to safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines, federal government assures as it rolls out second phase of vaccination. Plus, how will the situation in Afghanistan impact on global politics and economy? Good evening and welcome to NTA Network News. I am Kenan Ima Abodike. Hengino John Adams in Lagos will be reading with me. Let's start on a very cheerful note as President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the Petroleum Industry Bill 2021 into law. Working from home in 5 days quarantine as required by the Presidential Steering Committee on COVID-19 after returning from London on Friday, August 13, the President assented to the bill Monday, August 16 in his determination to fulfill his constitutional duty. The ceremonial part of the new legislation will be done on Wednesday after the days of mandatory isolation would have been fulfilled. The Petroleum Industry Act provides legal, governance, regulatory and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities and related matters. The Senate had passed the bill on July 15, 2021, while the House of Representatives did same on July 16, thus ending a long wait since early 2000s and notching another high for the Buhari administration. The presidential assent of the Petroleum Industry Bill into law by President Muhammadu Buhari has been described as not only a milestone, but the opening up of vistas of opportunities in the Nigerian oil and gas sector. Key players are optimistic that it will change the narrative and make the industry more focused, transparent and profitable. Lydia Sampson chronicles the PIB journey and the way forward for the industry.
June 2021 marks the end of an era in Nigeria's legislative arm of government. It is the termination of the Petroleum Industry Bill's 18-year parliamentary journey. The bill, conceived during the Olusegun Obasanjo administration in the year 2000, is part of efforts to reform the critical sector behind Nigeria's major foreign exchange earnings. Therefore, the bill, being the longest bill in the Nigerian parliament, evoked skepticism of ever being passed. Expert says the signing into law by the president pertains a vibrant oil and gas sector and more revenue for Nigeria through investment opportunities, which was eluding the country for lack of confidence in the investment terrain and a clear policy framework.
It will create additional infrastructure across petroleum value chain. Critical infrastructure will be developed utilizing the incremental revenue from increased petroleum activities. Greater confidence will be engendered.
The present Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, will be reformed and incorporated as the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited as the organization assumes full commercial status.
As the national oil company and also as an industry in this country, that is to produce the quick oil. Quick oil means that we have to monetize every resources that is available today so that we create the resources that will create the future for our country.
Truth to be told, the oil and gas sector remain pivotal to Nigerian economy.
The Petroleum Industry Act provides legal, governance and regulatory and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities and related matters. This, they say, is notching another high for the Buhari administration.
The intention of the law by making NNPC a Kama company is for it to be commercially driven.
They probably should be talking about NNPC being made a viable commercial entity that is allowed to operate in alignment with commercial interests and is not totally at the whims and caprices of those that own it.
The Act empowers the Minister of Petroleum Resources to incorporate the NNPC as a limited liability company 6 months after the commencement of the act. The bill's assent into law is expected to make the Nigerian oil sector more attractive and competitive, as well as strengthen accountability. The petroleum industry stakeholder says the 3% assented to for host communities by the president is a giant step towards social justice for the impoverished host communities. They reiterated that no law is ever perfect or can take care of every human desire all at once. For now, host communities trust fund and management will spearhead development of the communities. Impact of the new regime on Nigeria's global competitiveness and capital investment in the sector, with focus on enhanced tax incentives as well as sustained frontier exploration.
I want to appreciate the cooperation and partnership between the two arms of government, the legislature and the executive arm. We have been able to really cement the relationship so that we are able to work together seamlessly.
The frontier exploration will be applied to all basins and undertaken simultaneously. Funding of the Nigeria Frontier Basin is through the provision of 30% from the NNPC Limited profit. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the signing of the Petroleum Industry Bill into law by President Muhammadu Buhari marks a turning point in the history of the nation's oil and gas industry for the participation of the host communities in the sector. Kingsley Amajiri reports.
Since oil was discovered in commercial quantity at Oloibiri oil field in the present-day Bayelsa State in 1956, till date, the call for community participation or equity stake in the oil and gas industry has been reverberating.
There is a need for a law to regulate the petroleum sector in Nigeria.
After several attempts to get the National Assembly past the PIB, the 9th National Assembly successfully enacted the bill. The signing of the bill into law is, however, receiving mixed reactions from stakeholders within the region.
I want to commend the effort of Mr. President Muhammadu Buhari, for listening to the yearning of the people. This long-awaited bill has been on the floor of the National Assembly for a very long time.
We still expect him to do more, although we appreciate what he has done.
While this commendation is expected, some respondents are optimistic that there is always room for amendment to address issues raised bordering on host community definition and the percentage. In Port Harcourt, Kingsley Amajiri, NTA News.
Joining us on live Zoom is the former chairman, Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria, Mr. Emeka. And good evening to you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right. Finally, Nigeria's petroleum industry has the springboard to soar, placing it at par with counterparts globally. How do you see this new legislation turning the sector around?
Thank you. Good question. It has created a framework to move forward. Remember that the industry has been operating with laws that were 50 years old. It's like playing a football match today with football rules from 50 years ago. So it's made us very uncompetitive at a time when the industry is going through an inflection point. We're talking about transition energy. We're talking about global warming. We're talking about the uncertainties in terms of demand for oil and gas over time. So what this has helped is to create the investment framework. We're putting money into the oil and gas business in Nigeria. You can have a predictable outcome. Now, it's not a perfect bill. No bill is perfect. No act is perfect. The practitioners will drive it forward. At this point in time, it's a great step forward. And I think the industry has been waiting for it for more than a decade. This is a time when we look forward to seeing things begin to happen in the industry.
The host community issue has been a drawback for both operators and the Nigerian government over time. What picture do you see with the Petroleum Industry Act?
Well, for the first time, there's been a recognition that we need to embed in the host community obligations or host community requirements. If you've been to the area, in many parts of the Niger Delta, there's serious environmental degradation and very lack of infrastructure. If you dive deeper into the Petroleum Industry Act, if I may use the word, you'll see that 75% of the 3% set aside for host communities is actually supposed to go into capital projects. What that means is that we're going to begin to see a direct impact in terms of the infrastructure required to not just improve, to transform the standard of living in host communities. So the implementation of that is going to be very, very key. But I think what is important is that there's a distinct recognition within the institutional framework and the policy framework that host communities need to be provided for in a direct way and in a measurable, transparent, and consistent manner over time.
All right, the expectation over time is to ensure that the petroleum industry is linked to the larger economy for overall growth. So how do you see this one playing out?
Yes, in fact, the Petroleum Industry Act will enable those very direct linkages because over time we've had weak institutions. Remember that the Petroleum Industry Act replaces something like around 10 different individual acts which existed in silos. Now you have a consolidation of that into one act in a consistent manner. The regulatory framework, the Upstream Commission and the midstream and downstream authorities, again helps to create that structure across that. And the fiscal regime recognizes gas, incentivized gas, and therefore we're going to see those linkages to the broader economy begin to grow. Most importantly, if you look at the trend of foreign direct investment into Africa for the last 5 years or so, from 2015 to 2019, you will notice that in the almost $10 billion, $100 billion that has been invested in Africa.
Okay, let's quickly ask you this, because more investments are expected in the sector. You know, gas development, NNPC becoming more viable, etc. Is this actually the time Nigerians will begin to reap the gains of being an oil and gas producing nation?
Yes, indeed. The previous act only looked at oil as a resource and gas was a sidekick. This act recognizes that gas is front and center of our industry, and the NNPC now can compete, just like the Malaysian oil company. NNPC can compete and be held accountable as an entity, the same way we look at the NLNG as a success story. We can look at NNPC as a success story with measurable results that will impact the lives of people directly. I mean, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, we're going to be able to look at the financials of NNPC to see what impact the oil industry is having directly in the lives of people. The host community is the same thing, and the strengthening of the institutions created by the PIA will help again to bring those results to the streets, which is so needed. Things like auto gas and so many other things that will impact people directly on the street.
Thank you very much, Emeka, and former chairman, Petroleum Technology Association of Nigeria. Thanks indeed.
Thank you for having me.
Now, leaders of the National Assembly have commended the President for assenting to the Petroleum Industry Bill. A statement by the Chairman, Senate Committee on Public Affairs, Surajuddin Ajibola Bashiru, described the action as a major victory that has the potential of bailing Nigeria out of its economic predicament and ensure the full realization of the economic gains of the oil industry in Nigeria. The executive arm of government, led by President Muhammadu Buhari, the leadership and members of the National Assembly, and all other stakeholders in the oil industry. Similarly, the Speaker of House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has expressed happiness over the development, saying Nigeria's oil and gas industry will now receive a breath of fresh air and allow investment and transparency to flourish with the coming into being of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. Gbajabiamila, in a statement by his special advisor on media and publicity, Lanre Lasisi, expressed optimism that with the coming on board of the PIB, Nigerians will also benefit from reduced fuel prices as there will be competition among the industry players, attributing the success to synergy between the executive and legislative arms of government since the commencement of the 9th Assembly. In another development, OPEC Secretary General Mohamed Sanusi Barakindo has congratulated President Muhammadu Buhari for signing into law the Petroleum Industry Bill (PIB), noting that it marks a significant milestone for Nigeria's oil industry and an historic achievement for the president who, with the stroke of a pen, has opened a new era for the industry to strengthen the legal, regulatory, fiscal and governance framework of the petroleum sector. The new law, Barikindo says, will help harness Nigeria's potentials to achieve its program of raising oil production to 4 million barrels per day and oil reserves to 40 billion barrels. The Buhari administration, the Buhari Media Organization BMO, has also described President Muhammadu Buhari as a jinx breaker with the way he pushed through the petroleum industry bill that had been a contentious issue for about 20 years. A statement by the BMO said only a president with no personal interest can muster the necessary political will to reform Nigeria's petroleum industry. It cited the delay in the passage of the bill since the days of President Olusegun Obasanjo to Yar'Adua, down to President Goodluck Jonathan, were bogged down by personal as well as sectional interests and power play, and consequently making it impossible for the National Assembly to pass the bill. The federal government says it remains committed to ensuring that Nigerians have unfettered access to safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Steering Committee on the COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, stated this while officially flagging off the second phase of COVID-19 vaccination in the country. Oluseyi Adabo reports.
This second phase of COVID-19 vaccination flag-off signifies that all 36 states of the Federation and the FCT can commence administration of more than 400 million doses of Moderna vaccines, as well as 177,600 doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccines to Nigerians. The Moderna vaccine requires 2 jabs administered at intervals, while that of Johnson & Johnson is a complete single dose.
It is in your personal interest as a Nigerian, when the vaccines are made available, for you to ensure that you get vaccinated as quickly as possible, because very soon you will not be able to travel the world unless you produce an evidence.
Why should I take the vaccine? Because NAFDAC is the only agency in the world that is using track and trace to monitor where each vaccine vial goes.
To ensure a seamless exercise, the Federal Ministry of Health provided this guide for health workers in the field.
It has been prepared for health workers and for the delivery of these vaccines to Nigerians in the most effective way. I want to assure all Nigerians that all brands of the COVID-19 vaccine used in Nigeria has been certified by NAFDAC. They are safe and effective, especially against the Delta variant.
Defeating COVID-19 is a collective responsibility, hence the attraction of various partners to the event.
Again, I would like to assure, on behalf of my colleagues in the media, that we will be there as we've always been in the fight against COVID-19.
There is a good news for Nigerians expecting their second jab of the AstraZeneca vaccine, as the country has received about 700,000 additional doses of the vaccine from the United Kingdom. In Abuja, Oluseyi Adabo, NTA News.
Still talking health, the National Industrial Court Abuja Division has stepped into the dispute between the federal government and the National Association of Resident Doctors over the latter's indefinite strike. Government approached the court through the Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment for its intervention in the crisis. Olabode Arewa has more.
The National Association of Resident Doctors embarked on a nationwide strike on August 2, 2021, over what it described as non-fulfillment of agreements reached on welfare issues. Several rounds of negotiations failed to ensure return of the doctors to work in line with their classification as essential workers. Invoking provisions of Section 17 of the Trade Dispute Act of 2004, the Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment referred the matter to the court. counsel to the government, Andenom Shamaki, in his submission prayed the court to order the striking doctors back to work as the strike had caused hardship to Nigerians. Counsel to the doctors, Umar Duku, told the court that his clients were ready to resume work once the issues in contention were addressed.
The court said that we cannot pursue this at the moment since it is issue of reconciliation. We are for reconciliation. It is not a do-or-die matter. We are aware that Nigerians are suffering in hospitals.
Presiding Judge Justice John Tagema observed that since the matter required parties to further address it on their pleadings, more time should be allowed to exchange processes. The court adjourned the matter to September 15 for hearing, in the hope that an out-of-court resolution would have been arrived at. Olabodarewa, NTA News.
You are watching. Welcome back. President Muhammadu Buhari has congratulated the president-elect of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, on his victory, applauded the people of the country who came out in their numbers to exercise their civic right, voting candidates of their choice. The president says the development signposts that the prospect of a united, stable and prosperous Africa lies in the power of the people. He commends President Edgar Lungu for accepting the outcome of the election and hopes for a peaceful transfer of power, noting that this patriotic disposition deserves the praise of all lovers of democracy. Highlighting the close and historic relationship between Nigeria and Zambia, the Nigerian leader looks forward to working very closely with the Zambian president-elect for the peace, development and prosperity of both nations. Now, concerned by the rapidly evolving situation in Afghanistan, forcing hundreds of thousands to flee their homes, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has addressed the UN Security Council on the way forward. Deborah Brusklin-Sunday reports.
The Security Council meeting convened by the UN chief was in response to reports of high human rights abuses and violations in the communities most affected by the fighting after the takeover by Taliban. Briefing the Security Council on the situation, the UN scribe said there is a need for Taliban and other parties to exercise utmost restraints to protect lives and ensure that humanitarian needs can be addressed.
The international community must unite to make sure that Afghanistan is never again used as a platform or safe haven for terrorist organizations. The Taliban said that they would work with the existing institutions. It is crucial that civil servant salaries continue to be paid, infrastructure is maintained, airports are reopened, and health and education services continue. But above all, we will stay and deliver in support of the Afghan people in their hour of need.
We have seen gruesome images of Taliban's mass executions of military personnel and target killings of civilians in Kandahar and other big cities.
Protecting the rights of women and girls was also on the agenda.
It is time for the international community, in particular this council, to act and ensure an immediate cessation of violence and contain any possible crisis and mitigate its consequences.
Thousands of Afghans fled their homes amid fear the Taliban will again impose a repressive government. Adebola Brusklin-Sunday, NTA News.
Taliban declares war in Afghanistan over as Kabul airport witnesses scenes of panic following desperate residents' attempts to flee the country. Uche Ugochukwu brings us up to speed on the situation in Afghanistan.
The chaos came as Taliban officials declared the war was over and issued statements aimed at calming the panic that has been building in Kabul as the militants who ruled from 1996 routed the US-backed government forces almost 20 years' presence. President Ashraf Ghani fled the country Sunday as the Islamists entered Kabul virtually unopposed, saying he wanted to avoid bloodshed. Meanwhile, Taliban spokesman said the form of the new regime in Afghanistan would be made clear soon, as the Taliban did not want to live in isolation and so calling for peaceful international relations.
The Taliban should now know that issues of women empowerment, allowing women to go to school, girl child to go to school, allowing women to work, are not pushing women out of the business and political sphere in the 21st century is not going to hold waters.
Afghan Civil Aviation Authority also had its share of the cures. It advised transit aircrafts to reroute, saying its airspace was uncontrolled. Western nations, including France, Germany, and New Zealand, said they were working to get citizens as well as some Afghan employees out. At the weekend, U.S. President Joe Biden defended the withdrawal of American troops, saying he could not justify an endless American presence in the middle of another country's civil conflict.
The Americans, having supported with almost about $88 million to build the armed forces of Afghanistan and also return them to a democratic path, said that the ideology of the Taliban is selling more with the people.
Russia, China, and Iran have offered to strengthen relations with Afghanistan. Uche Ugochukwu, NTA News.
And joining us live via Zoom is Ambassador Dauda Danladi, a former Nigerian ambassador to Pakistan with concurrence to Afghanistan. Good evening, Ambassador Danladi.
Good evening, thank you for having me.
After decades of conflict and war, Taliban has taken over power in Afghanistan. What does that mean to the country, the region, and the world?
Well, I think it is really, it will be very challenging, especially to the Central Asian states like Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan, and of course Pakistan, where investors look up to Pakistan because Taliban controlled Afghanistan. If care is not taken, has a tendency to destabilize Pakistan. And if that is done, it is going to have a serious economic repercussion, which will, of course, resonate on the global economy. But let me say this quickly, that we have to look at the big picture. The Talibans, they are populated by an ethnic tribe called the Pashtuns. There are about 15 million Pashtuns in Afghanistan, and they are the largest tribe. While in Pakistan, they have about 43 million Pashtuns that are in Pakistan. And of course, during my tour in Afghanistan, I had the opportunity to meet with former Taliban leaders, people like Salahuddin Rabbani, Hajiddin Mohammed, and of course, these are people who have served under the Taliban government. My meeting with them culminated with meeting with Maulana Samir-ul Haq, who is considered the father of Taliban. My deductions then was that 70% of Afghans are sympathetic to the cause of the Taliban. They looked at this war as a war of ideology. They looked at this war as a religious war. Going forward, one can see the way the Taliban quickly swept through the country and was able to take over Afghanistan prior to the deadline, which is just 30th of this month. Ordinarily, America and its allies have spent about $2 billion US, $2 trillion in Afghanistan. They have trained about 350,000 security forces in Afghanistan. Ordinarily, they should have been able to hold that country. Again, look at the losses that America has suffered. Over 6,000 soldiers have lost their lives, including that of allies. Over 20,000 are injured. Some of them are disabled. When you look at it, it's quite unfortunate that today the chaos in Afghanistan has put both America and allies in a diplomatic quandary as to how to deal with the situation. But the Taliban are assuring the international community, and we hope that they will form an inclusive government so that going forward, countries like Iran, Pakistan, and of course, to some extent, Russia will contribute in stabilizing the region so that peace will reign. And of course, the terrorists will not have safe havens where they can coordinate and expand their activities.
Okay, so what and how should the world relate with the new Taliban government?
Well, I think already I think Turkey and Pakistan looking at the possibility they are going to be very active, and I think the United Nations has rise up to the occasion. We hope that they will be able to bring the Taliban, although it is a missed opportunity, because ordinarily there should have been conditions before the United States will withdraw from Afghanistan. But as it is now, I think the world needs to come together to see how the contiguous countries will play a role to ensure that Taliban form an inclusive government so that peace will reign in Central Asia. And of course, to ensure that to deny terrorists safe havens where they could launch their operations. Again, I must quickly point out this, that in the course of our work, we realized that there was kind of collaboration between Osama bin Laden's faction and, of course, the ISWAPs, because there was support. We discovered that there was support through the Arab Maghreb to ISWAP fighters, and, of course, Nigeria and other contiguous countries. The multinational task force has to be strengthened. Our armed forces have to be on red alert to see that there is no link through the Arab Maghreb that will empower the degraded Boko Haram fighters and ISWAP fighters.
Okay, Ambassador Danladi, thank you very much for talking to us tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now let's go to security matters, as the Provost College of Agriculture and Animal Science, Bakura in Zamfara State, Habibu Nasara, says 20 persons were abducted by armed bandits in the school. The Provost, who gave the confirmation while speaking with NTA News, said the abductees include 15 students, a staff, wife and 2 daughters of another staff, as well as a commercial driver. Haliru Mohammed Umar reports.
In an exclusive interview with NTA News, Provost of the college says the suspected bandits have made contact and demanded for ransom.
I was kidnapped before, just a month ago. I know them, that's why I have to talk to them politely. So they said that these are the number we have. I said, let me hear from the student, and I got the number ranging from 1 to 20. So finally they said we should tell the parent and the government that they are demanding 350 million.
NTA News camera has captured gunshots on the body of a car belonging to the commercial driver who was abducted along with the students and staff of the college. In the meantime, normalcy is yet to return to the college and its immediate community as people in the area and families of the victims continue to suffer the heartbreak of the unfortunate incident. The suspected armed bandits invaded the College of Agriculture and Animal Science Bakura in Zamfara State on Sunday night and shot sporadically, which resulted in the deaths of a policeman and 2 civilian guards. The bandits also abducted 23 persons, including 15 students and 5 staff of the college, though 3 of them later regained their freedom. A wife and 2 daughters of some of the kidnapped staff of the college, as well as a commercial driver who conveyed examinations booklet to the college from Gusau, are also part of the abductees. In Gusau, Jamilu Ibrahim, NTA News.
Plateau State government says it will not fold its arms and allow conflict merchants take the state back to the dark days of ethno-religious crisis. Governor Simon Lalong said this while monitoring the level of compliance of the 24-hour curfew imposed on Jos North local government area. Priscilla Gurumnan reports.
The 24-hour curfew in Jos North local government followed rising cases of threats in the area. The governor, in company of heads of security agencies in the state and the intelligence response team deployed to Jos from the office of the Inspector General of Police, visited Jos North to assess the level of compliance. The team visited victims of the attack at the Bingham University Teaching Hospital and the Plateau Specialist Hospital, where Governor Lalong condemned in its entirety attacks on innocent people, assuring them of government's assistance.
For those that are here, the first people is to go and take care of those who are challenged. Challenged in the sense that they are all helpless. Some of them are in the hospitals today with pains. So that's why we took time to first visit all those areas, those people who are in pains, make sure that we save their lives, and then we will now continue with our search for the criminals.
The governor appreciates the Inspector General of Police for deployment of more troops to the state as he expresses government's resolve to go after perpetrators of the heinous crime and ensure their prosecution.
If you are found guilty, whether it's your relation, please forget about him because he will face the law.
He called on the people to desist from sending wrong messages on social media, which he says accounted largely to the unwarranted loss of lives. In Jos, Priscilla Grumnan, NTA News.
Meanwhile, PLATEAU Elders Forum has expressed shock and condemned the attack on travelers that resulted to the death of many people. A statement by the forum sympathizes with the families of the victims and the Ondo State government over the avoidable tragedy and prayed for quick recovery for those who sustained injuries. It urged security agencies to always be proactive in the discharge of their responsibilities of protecting lives and property to give the citizens a sense of belonging. In another development, as part of ongoing efforts at restoring public order in Rukuba and 8 environs in Jos, Plateau State, following the unfortunate incident of last Saturday, the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, has ordered the deployment of additional operational assets, including a police surveillance helicopter, 2 units of police mobile force, and 2 cells of counter-terrorism unit. In a statement, Force Public Relations Officer Frank Mba indicates that a surveillance helicopter is expected to carry out aerial surveillance and confidence-boosting patrols within the hotspot in coordinated operations with the ground troops. 13 additional suspects have been arrested in connection with the incident, bringing the total number of arrested persons to 33. Meanwhile, the head of the police intervention team is already on ground, coordinating a police investigative, operational and peace-building response. You're watching. It's now time to join our Hingino, John Adams in Lagos for more reports.
Thank you, Kene. A recent report from the International Maritime Bureau indicates that piracy and armed robbery incidents within Nigeria's exclusive economic zone have dropped. This feat, attributed to the deployment of the Deep Blue project, is being followed up with the activation of the air tactical component of the platform. Director General of the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, NIMASA, Bashir Jamo, commended the partnership with the Nigerian Air Force in the quest to provide an environmental-friendly maritime domain. Michael Olale reports.
A recent video capturing a vessel wrongly discharging ballast waters into the country's sea signifies the capability embedded in the special mission aircraft of the Deep Blue project. Alongside the special mission helicopters and the unmanned aerial system, the platform provides real-time evidence collection and fast patrol of the country's airspace. Why this ceremony is important is that these personnel, already trained in various specialties and trade on CJ-3 Special Mission Aircraft and AR-3 UAV, will be deployed to give air tactical and operational support to the Deep Blue projects.
I must say that the graduation of these Nigerian Air Force personnel today resonates with the Chief of Air Staff's vision, which is to enhance and sustain air power capabilities required for joint force employment in pursuit of national security imperatives.
Like a case of the skies protecting the ocean, the personnel described as eyes in the sky are relevant in the strategic collection of intelligence gathering.
There is therefore the need for continued cooperation and patriotism of all players to sustain this spirit and thus create maritime industry of our dreams towards safe, secure, and cleaner oceans.
There are 8 littoral states captured under the Deep Blue project, and Ondo State, with the longest coastline, believe the platform will enhance revenue generation.
It's a strategy to implement the blue economy for Nigeria.
The sustenance of the platform has been made easy through the provisions of the Suppression of Piracy and Maritime Offences Act 2019, which set aside certain percentage payable by any offender. In Lagos, Michael Alale, NTA News.
Talking disaster management now, going forward, efforts to prevent and manage disasters in Lagos State will enjoy a more coordinated approach as Lagos State Emergency Management Agency, LASEMA, and other relevant agencies rally to evolve better synergy and regulations. The platform for this new agenda is the inauguration of Interagency Work Group on Disaster Risk Reduction in the state. PLATEAU completes the report.
Despite several efforts at bridging infrastructure gap in Lagos State, the ever-increasing population of Nigeria's commercial capital has always put a strain on both physical and social amenities. Experts believe that this inadequacy is one of the factors of disasters, such as building collapse, flooding, fire outbreaks, and road crashes in the state. This meeting hopes to fine-tune a 5-year strategic plan which will aggregate the commitment and resources of relevant agencies to promote disaster risk reduction as a new paradigm for handling emergencies.
Our job is to be prepared and be ready to move into action every day, every hour.
To look at ways in which all the key stakeholders can come up with a strategic roadmap to better respond to the pressures that are coming.
Submissions at the meeting dwelt on how to achieve higher level of interagency synergy, coordination and regulations.
They are the first responders when you have emergency and disasters. So we start from the boardroom and then we start to discuss amongst ourselves. How do we handle these things?
What are the ability of the people to recover? Because most of the victims of disasters will never recover, especially those who don't have insurance coverage.
Preventing disaster and managing it whenever it occurs through a timely response is a major strategy that modern cities now adopt to mitigate losses. In Lagos,
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo says he will continue to be an advocate of young Nigerians, especially those in the All Progressives Congress, to make sure that the youths are involved in the affairs of the party. This was when the Vice President received a delegation of the APC Youth Wing led by Barrister Ishmael Ahmed. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports.
These are members of the All Progressives Congress National Youth Lobby Group led by Ismail Ahmed. They are here in the office of the Vice President to present the report of the party's youth conference held in June this year. Welcoming the idea of young people in the party forming the group, the Vice President said the lobby group would need to deal with the issue of inclusion at the grassroots first. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said the group is more relevant today than ever before, because it's representing not only the young people, but that it has the energy to make sure that the party actually works for all Nigerians. The Vice President noted that though the political environment is complicated, the youths can get things done by their consistency and tenacity demonstrated in all aspects of political party engagements. Leader of the APC National Youth Lobby Group, Ismail Ahmed, thanked the Vice President for being a consistent voice and supporter of youth, regardless of political affiliations, but appealed for more youth integration in the affairs of the party across all levels.
That's why the young people are everywhere. There's opportunity, and we have a president, a vice president, and leaders of the party who are very open to this idea of getting the future of the party being part of the present as well, so that we secure the future.
In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
President Muhammadu Buhari felicitates with former President Ibrahim Babangida as he marks his 80th birthday. President Buhari notes that as former military commanders during the war, both retiring as generals, they have mutual interests, great hopes and expectations in a strong and united Nigeria. President Buhari expresses hope that privileged Nigerians like President Babangida and others like himself will recommit to ongoing efforts to help the nation to reach more glory, progress and prosperity. Let's go on our... Welcome back. The Nigerian Meteorological Agency has forecast a 3-day heavy rainfall in some parts of the country starting tomorrow, Tuesday 17, through to 19th August. Let's join Sophia for tomorrow's outlook, while those in areas concerned get their umbrellas ready.
Good to have you join us. The current satellite picture depicts active weather systems